Hello, this is Dennis with Walk This Way. I've noticed that in studying the Bible, there are at least 4 different types of prayer. There is individual prayer. The Bible calls it praying in your closet or secret prayer. You are alone with the Creator God of the universe talking to each other. And you can find this reference in Matthew 6:6. There is also group prayer. And a good example of group prayer is in the book of Acts. The early Christian church frequently met with each other to pray. There's also public prayer. And a good example of public prayer is praying in church. And lastly, there is having a spirit of prayer all during the day. And this is what I want to focus on in this video. I wanted to address and answer the question, what does it mean to be instant in prayer? And then in a future video, I would like to address and answer the question, what does it mean to pray without ceasing? So we're going to look at Romans chapter 12, verse 12 to find this reference about being instant in prayer. And in Romans 12:12, the Bible says, rejoicing in hope, patient in tribulation, continuing instant in prayer. I looked up that word instant in the Noah Webster's dictionary, and it means pressing, earnest, quick, immediate, urgent. In other words, this is a prayer that is quick and immediate, that it wasn't planned in advance. It's something a problem came into your life, and you had to send up a quick, immediate prayer. Are there any examples in the Bible of people that were instant in prayer? Yes, there is. Let's look at the book of Nehemiah. So in chapter 1, verses 4-11 is recorded this powerful prayer of Nehemiah. And Nehemiah is pouring out his heart to God. And we're only going to read verse 11 here, but you could read the whole thing for yourself. Verse 11, it says here, "So Lord, please listen to my prayer. I am your servant. Please listen to the prayers of your servants who want to show respect for your name. You know I am the king's wine servant, so please help me today. Help me as I ask the king for help. Give me success and help me to be pleasing to the king." So we're going to pick up this story in Nehemiah chapter 2, verse 2. So evidently Nehemiah has this powerful prayer. He's poured out his heart to God, and he goes to work. So at work, he's doing his job. He's taking a glass of wine to the king to drink, and the king notices something unusual about Nehemiah. So let's look at verse 2. "So the king asked me, 'Are you sick? Why do you look sad? I think your heart is full of sadness.'" So evidently, Nehemiah was a cheerful person, because on this occasion, is out of the ordinary, his facial expressions were one of sadness. And it was so much that the king noticed that he looked sick. So what was Nehemiah's response? Going on in verse 2, it says, "Then I was afraid." So going on in verse 3, "But even though I was afraid, I said to the king, 'May the king live forever. I am sad because the city where my ancestors are buried lies in ruins, and the gates of that city have been destroyed by fire.'" So he identifies the reason why he is sad to the king. So let's go on in verse 4. "Then the king said to me, 'What do you want me to do?'" Wow, this is a loaded question. Nehemiah needed to answer this question in the right way, because it was critical. It meant the future of the Jewish nation and the rebuilding of that city. So, instead of him relying upon his human intellect, he decided to be instant in prayer. So he goes on and says here, before I answered, I prayed to the God of heaven. So here is an example of being instant in prayer. The problem came up right on the spot immediately. And instead of him living in the physical realm, he decided to tap into the spiritual realm and send up a quick prayer to the God of heaven in his mind. He sent up an instant prayer. So what did that do? What kind of prayer, that particular type of prayer, what did it do? Well, if we were to roll back the curtains and look into the invisible world, we would see angels in response to Nehemiah's prayer surrounding the king and the queen and impressing upon them good thoughts, softening their hearts, and also to help them hear what Nehemiah was trying to tell them. What about Nehemiah? Well, God was answering that prayer of him being instant in prayer to help Nehemiah to impress upon his mind what he was supposed to say, and to also so that he had an atmosphere around him so that he didn't come across defensive, and so that it wasn't taken as his words to be as defensive. So let's look at verse 5. Then answered the king, if it would please the king, and if I have been good to you, please send me to Jerusalem, the city in Judea where my ancestors are buried. I want to go there and rebuild that city. The king and the queen, who was sitting next to him, asked me, how long will your trip be? When will you get back here? The king was happy to send me, so I gave him a certain time. This was a life-changing request and shaped history. For Nehemiah, at this time, being instant in prayer gave momentum for them to rebuild Jerusalem and that city. Wow. And then about 400 years later, the Messiah was born in that city and walked those streets of Jerusalem. Isn't that powerful? A powerful example of what it means to be instant in prayer. Well, what about for us today? Well, let's give some examples of needing to be instant in prayer. So you're discussing finances with your spouse, and your spouse wants to buy a big ticket item, a car. You need to be instant in prayer and live in the spiritual realm. So you get called into your boss's office and you don't know why. Be instant in prayer, live in the spiritual realm. So your children did something wrong and you want to yell at them. Be instant in prayer, live in the spiritual realm. So your neighbor is going to come over and talk to you because your dog's been barking all day, or you're going to go over to your neighbor and because their dog has been barking all day and you're just going to give it to them. Be instant in prayer, live in the spiritual realm. Your brother and sister come over to visit you, and they want to talk about controversial politics. Be instant in prayer, live in the spiritual realm. Let God work on your heart and the hearts of those that you are interacting around you. When we live in the spiritual realm, this will produce joy and peace. But when we're living in the physical realm, it produces disappointments, frustrations, and discontentment. So remember, the battle is not yours, but God. 2 Chronicles 20, verse 15. Again, the battle is not yours, but God. Live in the spiritual realm. Send up an instant prayer. Don't rely upon your own words, because sometimes they could come across as defensive. God's going to work this out for you. So again, be instant in prayer. This isn't your battle, it's God's. Well, thank you for spending time with me today. And we will continue to learn how we can have a close walk with God. Thank you.